point, what does the Treasury Secretary
protecting fiat for the government?
I mean, very focused on. I don't know. I don't understand it myself because he definitely understands.
He understands. So it's there's something else.
There's something.
Okay, but
No.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, this morning we actually had the inflation, the CPI data come out, and as you guys can see right here, it actually fell to 3.2%, which is lower than expectations. We also had core at 4.0% with expectations of 4.1%. Now, usually you would think that because we're in topsy-turvy world, right, and we're looking for the Fed to ultimately pause or even reverse, you could see right here, the dollar absolutely plummeting, right? And we were talking about this potential kiss of death, although it did kind of move a little bit higher, tried to get back to the heartline, but you could see the dollar did start falling, and you can see it's actually fallen below this sort of 104 area. But what's interesting is if we have a look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is also falling as well. Why is this happening? You would think that this would be risk on if Bitcoin is considered risk on still, right? I mean, we saw stocks moving up this morning, but we didn't see Bitcoin moving up. Now, why is this? So obviously the biggest question that everyone's going to be asking now is Bitcoin losing its steam, right? Is that ETF buzz kind of starting to fizzle out? Well, there's a lot that we need to talk about because there is so much. In fact, there's something much, much bigger at play that a lot of people are really overlooking right now. And yes, you could say it has something maybe to do with the ETF, but it's actually a much broader picture. And I want to go into detail exactly what that is. I also want to talk about the fact that we did have Bitcoin flashing a legacy signal, very, very important. And we do have historical data that shows what usually tends to happen when this does happen to the Bitcoin price. So is the Bitcoin price looking for that last leg up, or is it ultimately time for a correction? I'm going to go over all the TA. If you want to see that, make sure that you stick around to the end of the video. And also, I have a bit of a cautionary tale that I think you might want to stick around for, especially if you're new to the crypto space. So if all that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, definitely consider it. And, if we're having a look right here before I, get into everything, one thing that we were actually talking about, very technically speaking, is that Bitcoin was kind of hitting, this next area of resistance right here. And as you guys can see, anything in this blue zone, is obviously good for Bitcoin. That means we're sort of out of the lower area, but we haven't really retested any of these major trends, right? These trends that date all the way back to here, excuse my scribblings from the other day, but, we, could still potentially come down here and retest it, or at least minimally just come down and retest this area right here, which Bitcoin has still yet to do. So I will get into that, obviously, because you do have, a lot of people out there, for example, Titan of Crypto, he's been talking about this possibility of a parabolic advance for Bitcoin, where we just start going into this massive, crazy, phase. Are we actually at that level just yet? Well, we obviously will talk about that as well. And of course, guys, let's dive in. Make sure you turn on those bell notifications. I know the videos are coming out at kind of crazy times lately. So let's talk about this first. And then I want to play a few video clips for you. So the spot Bitcoin ETF. Well, this is very interesting because according to Bloomberg's James Safart, he's explaining that there is actually a small window in which the SEC could issue the 19B4 approval, but he stressed the general belief is that the SEC would prefer to batch approve spot Bitcoin ETFs, so they don't want to really show this favoritism. The consensus is that they will batch approve a bunch of ETFs all at once, but as you can see right here, the window to approve these 12 filings is going to close November 17th. So that's only in 3 days from now, right? Because this is when issuers who filed late, for example, Hashdex, Franklin, etc., will enter a public comment period, at which point the SEC simply isn't going to approve them until that period is over. So, Cathie Wood, she was over on Squawk Box this morning, and she was talking about Gensler, and they were discussing the fact that Gary Gensler taught at MIT. We've caught him in so many contradictions when it comes to, the fact that he understands Bitcoin. He even made a mention before he was SEC chair that he didn't understand how we could approve a futures and not a spot. Well, she kind of shed some light on this, and as we were guessing, there's clearly some deeper narratives right now.
Over the years, I've gotten to know the research people at the SEC, and I'm very impressed. And I was impressed by the questions they asked us, too. So,
what were the kinds of questions they asked?
A lot of them were very technical. They're all about protecting the consumer. And, of course, the showstopper, at least from Gary Gensler's point of view, is he thinks Bitcoin can be manipulated. And, this is a decentralized, transparent network. You can follow all the activity online. It's highly unlikely.
Well, it had to be that because he understands, Kathy. He's got enough. Not many people do. A lot of people don't have enough knowledge about how it works to make an informed decision about Bitcoin. He taught at MIT so he understands that it's not a Ponzi scheme or a Beanie Baby. Right. So there has to be something else.
Well, I don't know what it is. I have wondered. There's speculation that he's interested in the Treasury Secretary position at some point. What does the Treasury Secretary do?
Protecting fiat for the government?
I mean, very focused on. I don't know. I don't understand it myself because he definitely understands.
He understands. So there's something else.
There's something.
Okay, but how? So again, the bigger question on everybody's mind, and obviously we kind of knew that Gary Gensler was up to no good. We know that he's in the pockets of all the banksters, right? But then the thing that you ask yourself is, well, then is it a buy the rumor, sell the news event? Now, I have my opinion on it. I'll give it to you after the video, but this is sort of what she had to say.
Is it a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of situation, or is it just a straight shot if, in fact, that were to come to be pass?
I am sure there is some anticipation, and there could even be a sell on the news. But the fundamentals, we put out a Bitcoin monthly piece every month, and you can see the health of the network using our on-chain metrics. The health of the network is almost as good as it gets. And it seems like this is a bull market. Sure, we'll have puts and takes. Nothing goes straight up. But I think this flight to quality, Larry Fink used that expression. We call it flight to safety. You look at what happened during the regional bank crisis. Bitcoin went from 19,000 to nearly 30,000 as the KRE, the regional bank stock index, was imploding. If you look at the bank stock index today, it is back down close to where it was in March. So when Larry might say flight to quality, which is good, it's true, we would say flight to safety because there's no counterparty risk in Bitcoin.
So as far as it being a buy the rumor, sell the news event, in my honest opinion, what I believe may happen is on the day of approval, I think you will see a massive surge in price followed by probably a very strong correction because the news will come out, everyone's going to be cheering, they're going to be going long, and then it's like, okay, well, what next? Now, don't forget that even if they get the approval, that doesn't mean it's going to go live the next day. There's still a lot of paperwork, a lot of legality, right, that they have to go through. So it may not even come out right away. But what I do believe will happen is after this potential sell the news event, you may have everybody saying, see, I told you so. I told you it was a big conspiracy by BlackRock. Well, no, because then what it's going to do is it's going to slowly open up the doors and then the money is going to trickle in slowly. Because remember, and I know this seems kind of backwards, but people like BlackRock, for example, they don't want to be launching in a parabolic phase. Now, I know to us that would be great, right? All of our bags would pump, Bitcoin would go straight to the moon. But really what they're looking for is slow, steady, grinding appreciation, right? And that's probably what we're going to get. We're going to get that big surge, then we're going to have that pullback, and then you're going to see it slowly start to grind back up again, eventually leading into a potential blow off top or something like that after the halving, maybe even as far as 2025. So I still believe that the narrative of the Bitcoin ETF is still good for Bitcoin, right? Now, of course, there's some diehard, Bitcoin maxis that'll argue against that. Look, we've gone over this time and time again, right? But if you look at what Ash Bennington of Real Vision and Brett Harrison, the former president of FTX US, was sharing their insights. They were talking about the Bitcoin spot ETF and whether or not it would come out this year or next year. And Harrison is of the opinion that the cryptocurrency narrative has not yet realized its full potential and promises linked to it have not come to fruition. In fact, he says that the Bitcoin ETF is in fact not fully priced in. If you're looking at the market cap and it's $1.5 trillion the size of the Korean stock market and it's an industry of 14 years, it's kind of already achieved institutional adoption. But again, are the institutions really buying right now, right? So I'm going to go into some data. We'll have a look. But right here, he added that the approval of an ETF will significantly boost spot cryptocurrency volumes. Authorized participants who are going to be creating and redeeming this ETF are going to need to be trading this spot to be able to uphold their markets and be able to create the arbitrage between the spot and the ETF to keep it in line. So as you can see right here, Bitcoin institutional inflows top 1 billion in 2023 amid the Bitcoin supply squeeze. So number one, what we have right here is we have the fact that this year alone, and keep in mind, we're not even done with the year yet, we have already surpassed by, I believe it was 30, 40, or 50, it might even be higher, $1 million at this point, or, so that's something to talk about right there. Also, the fact that we are having a supply squeeze, right? There's a lot of holders that aren't going to sell. There's a lot of Bitcoin that is pretty much lost forever. And then they're going to have to be accumulating and holding the spot Bitcoin. But we have the halving next year, which means there's going to be less Bitcoin being distributed by the miners, right? This is going to lead to that supply squeeze, which is why I said I don't believe necessarily we're in the parabolic phase right now, although we will get to that later. But I do think that it is going to come at some point, right? And, yeah, I mean, if we scroll down here, they say crypto institutional products are up 99% year to date. 99%, guys. Let's just call it 100%. It's probably 100% by the time I'm putting this video out. I mean, you've even seen these other companies. I'm not really sure what this is. Boya. I've never heard of them, but Interactive International Limited, they're a Hong Kong-based developer of online card and board games, and they're planning to acquire $45 million worth of Bitcoin to add it to its balance sheet. This move would put Boya as the 12th largest holder of Bitcoin among corporate treasuries. And again, this is what we've been saying, they're going to add it to the balance sheets. These financial advisors are going to start advising that people hold 1%, 2%, 3, 5% possibly, right? And when you take these very small numbers, 1%, 2%, but you take that of 14, 17, 20 trillion dollars, we're talking big moves for Bitcoin, because remember, in order to move the price, you don't need the actual amount. The only way that you calculate market cap is you take the circulating supply and you multiply it by the last price sold. I know that I'm oversimplifying it, but that literally, basically in a nutshell, is how it's derived. You don't need $60 million to move the market cap 60 million. You understand what I'm saying here? And it's not just that, but Bitcoin mining revenue has soared to record 44 million high. You can see, according to data captured on blockchain.com, the total daily rewards and transaction fees paid to Bitcoin miners obviously is over 44 million. This article is 2 days old, but the numbers speak for themselves. And they say it's driven by several factors, including rising market prices, growing user interest, and increased network activity. Amid the resurgence, Bitcoin mining firm Marathon Digital Holdings reported an astounding 670% year-on-year revenue spike and a 5-fold Bitcoin production, right? And, as you guys can see right here, the Bitcoin rich list, new data reveals a remarkable 237% surge in the number of Bitcoin wallets holding at least 1 million in 2023. Financial institutions are actively accumulating, or somebody's accumulating. There's a whale or someone that's clearly buying. But, getting back over here to Marathon Digital Holdings, there was this video that came out on Kitco News where they interviewed the chairman and CEO, Fred Thiel, and he was talking, obviously he talked about the ETF, obviously we've talked about the ETF a lot, but he mentioned something even bigger that most people are missing. So, Michelle McCory, she asked a question about geopolitical tension and all the stuff that's going on in the world right now. And listen, I am not the type of person that's rooting for wars so that Bitcoin price goes up. That is not at all what I believe in. I think wars are terrible for everybody in all. I don't think they solve anything personally. But, getting back to, is Bitcoin truly actually acting as that flight to safety? If we did have more economic turn down and more geopolitical tension, would it be good for Bitcoin? And his response was quite interesting.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are two worlds of Bitcoin. You have the developed world view of Bitcoin, which is a store of value. It's an area where I invest. I put my money in it, but that's because I live in a country where things are safe and stable and the fiat currency and the government works. In the developing world, where you have potential for high inflation, you have currency and capital flight controls, you have unstable governments. Bitcoin plays a very different role, which is, in the go back to 100 years ago in prior conflicts, people would buy diamonds and sew diamonds in their clothes when they needed to cross borders and leave countries. Now Bitcoin plays that role. So you clearly saw with the Ukraine crisis, Bitcoin take a jump up as people on both sides of the conflict wanted to assure that their assets would be easily transportable, or at least portable, and safe, and have self-sovereignty. I think you're seeing some of that in this conflict. The difference is the scope of the conflict today is limited in the number of people that are directly being impacted by it. But as it spreads potentially across the wider Gulf region, that would then drive, I think, a definite flight to asset protection and self-sovereignty, which Bitcoin's the perfect instrument for that. So I think that could have an impact.
You wouldn't see potentially a move away from riskier assets if there is a spread?
Excuse me. Yes, I mean, it all depends.
I mean, this is like a test for Bitcoin as a safe haven asset.
So I think Bitcoin has shown itself to decorrelate itself from everything recently. It has, the correlation to equities has diminished. The correlation to gold has diminished. As an inflation hedge, it's diminished. I think in a world of lots of uncertainty, people who are believers in Bitcoin will only double down and move more of their assets into Bitcoin. You're correct to say that in the event of a crisis in the Gulf and oil being impacted, oil prices shooting up, that would cause a huge impact on inflation in the Western world, certainly because of energy prices going up. The U.S. is one of the largest producers of oil in the world. We don't refine a lot of our own oil, and so that causes an impact. The petrol that people use in the U.S., a good portion of it has to actually be refined outside of the U.S. So all of these issues create risk, and people who want to make sure that they can have their assets close at hand. Is there risk of bank failures? Are there risk of defaults? Things like that. I think people will, to a certain extent, move funding into Bitcoin, just like gold previously has been a haven. And the advantage Bitcoin has over gold is it's fungible, it's transportable. Because it's in the ether. The only thing that can harm Bitcoin is if the internet were to go down, essentially, when you think about it.
Right, which would arguably mean we have much, much bigger problems if we have a global internet outage.
But I can tell you one thing, whether you are part of one of these countries, maybe hyperinflation, Venezuela, or you're just a Western, you're over here in the US or something like that, at the end of the day, it really, all I've seen time and time again is people having Bitcoin, either selling too soon or forgetting about it or giving up on it. And, for example, here's a post that came out July 25th of 2010. I have only 600 Bitcoins, virtually all generated last week. I missed the bus. I only have 600 Bitcoins. I missed the bus. You don't want to be this person saying, I only have 1 Bitcoin. I missed the bus, right? Because we know with inflation, there's so many factors that are going to pour into this market. And, I've talked about a $1 million Bitcoin. People think that's crazy. Well, I've heard $10 million Bitcoin. I've heard insane price targets, and we've gone over realistically how those numbers are possible, even though they sound crazy by today's standards. In fact, there was a clip from Michael Saylor that I wanted to play for you guys today, but it was really, really long. Maybe I'll put it in tomorrow's video. But he really broke down sort of why Bitcoin is the superior asset compared to everything else. Just kind of in summary, for example, if you had real estate, right, and you destroyed the real estate, or like a storm hit it or something like that, that would be devastating to everybody, right? The value would obviously go down. You'd have to rebuild, whatever. But with Bitcoin, if somebody loses their Bitcoin, all that does is add value to the people that still have Bitcoin and are holding it, right? It makes the rest of the Bitcoin valuable. I kind of summarized that. He said it a lot better than I did. But, getting back over here, just explaining, you had Saifedean Ammous, I think that's how you say his name. He was talking about how ultimately at some point, this is from Ronin, by the way, Ronin 21 BTC. I do like following this guy. And, eventually people are going to realize that they almost kind of have no choice.
It's not optional. I mean, you will either move there or you will watch your wealth lose its value as the people who put their money there appreciate. I mean, just think about it. If you have $1 million and you put them in a currency that's constantly depreciating, or somebody has $10,000 and puts them in a currency that's constantly appreciating, it's only a matter of time until they overtake you. And people are not stupid. They will realize this and they will want to move forward. So when I talk about Bitcoin adoption, people think of it as being like, say, Apple iPhone adoption. It's very nice and very cute, and then people will buy it. But I think that's not the model for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is more like gunpowder adoption. If you think about it, did the French army have a choice whether they should adopt gunpowder or not? Did they decide, no, you know what, we like to keep it real with sticks and stones and swords, and we're not going to use gunpowder? If any army that decided to do this, it didn't matter, because then another army with gunpowder would come and take over France. So eventually, everywhere in the world ended up with gunpowder, either because people adopted it or because it was used against them. And I think Bitcoin is like that. Bitcoin is like financial gunpowder. It's the safest way of sending money halfway around the world, the most secure way, and it's the hardest money that we've ever invented. So it's not something that is, whether we should or want to, or whether people, we try to win people over. And this, this is why my book is not marketing for Bitcoin, because I don't think marketing for Bitcoin matters. At the end of the day, this is economic reality. The harder money will win. Gold beats silver, and I discussed this in my book, not because there was better marketing for gold or there was better propaganda for gold. It beat silver because of economic reality. Gold grew at a much slower rate than silver. The value of silver declined, and I think this is really the case with Bitcoin, I think, in the long run.
All right, so hopping into the charts, I wanted to talk about what we're seeing, whether or not we truly are starting that parabolic phase. I also want to obviously talk about some caution, whether or not we are overextended, show you some key levels, and also I want to talk about this indicator, which has historically given us very, very good views on where Bitcoin could be going. So let's dive in first and have a look. So you'll see something like this, if you're over on crypto Twitter or something of that nature, and you'll be seeing a lot of guys saying that we might be forming this parabolic trend, right? Well, we only really have these 2 points right now, so it wouldn't be that hard to break that trend, even just to come down something like this and retest this area, right? Because we haven't really had a full retest yet, and we are hitting some major resistance. So it could be possible. I mean, maybe we are going parabolic. Maybe we do something like this. Although personally, I don't think we're at that level yet. But hey, I mean, the price pumped a lot faster than I thought it was going to. So I've been wrong before. Happy to be wrong if it's to the upside, but it's always sad when you can't accumulate anymore. But yeah, I mean, it'd be most likely we probably would break this parabola and have a retest down here. Could we shoot up a little bit farther? It is possible. As you guys can see right here, though, we were basically in this parallel channel, and it was offering really good, for example, if you came down here, you would usually want a long. Obviously, this was a bear trap, so that was a bad example. But I mean, you'd have your long, your short, your long, your short, you're long, and then again here, should you be looking to short? Well, I'm not going to tell anybody to short right now. Obviously, I don't give signals on this channel. If you do want to learn how to trade, though, you can check out the tutorials popping up above. There's over $66,000 in bonuses. But as you guys can see, could we just end up getting a bit of a fake out here? Well, again, as I've said, we have not had a retest of the trend line or even down to some of these lower levels. So yeah, I do think that a potential pullback is possibly in the cards. Markets don't go up in straight lines. If you did look at possibly could we go higher based on volume? Well, you can see right here, we've been hanging around this sort of $34,000 or $35,000 area. The next area where we have this bump out and drop off in the volume range profile is right around $39,000 even. So is it possible to get that, one more push up to that level? Yes, but then the level after that is 47,000. Now, as you guys can see, we obviously had the target of 47,000. We had this breakout up here, anywhere between 47 to 54. But again, markets don't move up in a straight line. Usually not at this point, unless there's some crazy news. So, worst case scenario, would you want to retest down here at the volume range at around 30? Yeah, I think that's possible. I think it'd be a great opportunity for a pullback, and then also, if you kind of just draw this line right here, you could see where that would coincide, right? We would still maintain that upward sloping trend, and we would have a nice retest. and we would be held down, we would be supported by this volume range, right? So that is a possibility. Another thing that we need to point out is if we take the Fibonacci retracement, so basically what I did was I took this level, I drew it all the way up to the top right here, and that was our entire move from the bottom to the top. And then what that does is it gives us these levels, and you could see how the levels do respect. You could see how it acted as support right here, acted as support right here, acted as resistance right here. And then once we broke through it, right, well, what was the next level of interest? The next was the 0.618. And you can see how the 0.618 acted here as our support and here as our resistance. We tried to break above it, fake out, tried to break above it, fake out, and we moved up. And look, now we've hit the next, which is the 0.5, right? So, I mean, these Fibonacci levels are really, really great. They're obviously not perfect. Nothing is ever perfect in trading, but you can see that this is the area that we're at. So the next level is around 44,000. So you're starting to see a lot of the confluence between really this $30,000 to $47,000 area. But, you know, the idea of putting in a new all-time high by the end of this year, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen. You know, nothing is out of the cards. It just probably is not likely. But I do still think that Bitcoin continues to put in higher highs and higher lows. And I don't think we're going below this low. I think the low is in. And I would be quite surprised if we fell back below the 0.618, because then that would put us back in this, you know, area right here. But we've already accumulated in that area, you know, and going back again, having a look at the VPVR, you know, you could see, look, right here, we've already accumulated in that area, right here. You see all that? I can even throw it on right here if you guys kind of just want to see. Let me see if I can just throw it on right here. Probably give you a better visual. Do I not have this pulled up? All right. See right here, guys. So obviously this is, I'm back too far. I'm showing the accumulation phase of COVID. But if I zoom in right here, you know, see all this down here? I mean, look at all this massive accumulation, all of this right here. And look at how it coincides with all of this right here. That's exactly why the thought of falling below this Fibonacci is probably not going to happen. But here is the kicker. So here is something that Bitcoin is doing right now. And if you just turn on simple RSI, I haven't done anything fancy with this. If you just put on standard RSI indicator, this is the standard purple zone, right? And you can see right here where the purple zone ends is at 70, right here. And I've marked out every single time recently that Bitcoin has moved above 70 and stayed. Obviously, I took out these sections right here, right? Because we were oscillating around it, right? We were oscillating around it, right? So I'm not counting that. I'm talking about just simply the first time that we break and hold above the RSI for a minimum of 3 weeks, okay? Why 3 weeks? Well, I don't know. I don't make the numbers here. That's just how the data is. It just seems like whenever we're there for 3 or more weeks, it could be 3 or more weeks, we tend to kick off. So you can see right here, and you know, I'm not gonna go into every single thing. You can see this with your own eyes. Right here, we had one on January of 2013, and Bitcoin continued to move to the upside, right? Right here, we had one in October of 2013, and Bitcoin still continued to move to the upside. We had it again right here in May of 2016, and you could see that Bitcoin just basically continued moving to the upside, right? And, you know, it did have its little sideways moments, and, I mean, look, if you want to be realistic, it even had crashes, right? It looks so small, but look at this. Look, guys, this is a 40% crash. This right here, this is a 40% crash. Look at this. Look at this, if you zoom in. Isn't that crazy how like it just looks like nothing? But yeah, I mean, so 40% crash, oh my God, it's the end. But no, we had that signal, we oscillated, we continued to the upside. Right here, now this is where it gets interesting. We had the signal, we continued to the upside, but what did we have? We had a mid-cycle rally, and then we fell to the downside, right? And I'm gonna get back to that one in just a minute. Here, same thing, right? We had the flash in November of 2020. Boom, got the RSI crossing over 70. Major move. I mean, I haven't even really seen what these numbers are. What was this one? That was a 400% move. 400% move. And guys, we just literally had it again. And as you guys can see here, 1, 2, 3 weeks. And the fourth week we're dipping. But again, I said that as long as it was 3 weeks or more, it's okay, because usually the RSI ends up dipping anyway, right? It ends up oscillating back down. Now, here is the situation. If we look at all these other, right, we only had this one outlier right here. This was the one where we had a mid-cycle rally and we ended up correcting back downwards. Now, what is the difference, if you guys can spot it? Well, the big difference is, if you look at the super guppy, this signal flashed, we were in the green. 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 This signal flashed, we were not in the green. We were in the neutral leading into the teal, green, right? Well, what are we getting right here? We've just come out of the neutral and we're leading into the teal EMA. So we're not in the green. So this is why I had a little bit of caution saying we could be seeing something like what we saw back here, where we are out of the bear market. We are technically out of the bear market, but we have this mid-cycle rally where it topped out at 14K and then it just sort of bounced around sideways. Now, I know, again, people are going to point out COVID. But again, guys, COVID was a black swan. If you have a look at where these bands are, right, if you look at that, I think that's what it wanted to do. I think it wanted to stay in the green. It wanted to, but COVID pulled us down, right? And that's exactly why that ended up happening. So again, what we could be looking for, and I'm just, this is just what I don't know exact numbers here. Maybe we have something like this. Maybe we do come up to 47, but we don't get to the all-time high. And then maybe we have a bit of a retrace, back down, something like this. Again, I do not think that we would put in a lower low. I think if anything, we would, retest one of these macro levels, right? But having a look at the weekly, over here on Market Cipher is suggesting that we may be potentially nearing a top, but this wave is bigger than this wave. So that's telling me that there is still a potential chance for one more push to the upside, right? Because we still have all of this anchor trigger wave happening here on the lower end. So basically, in a nutshell, yes, I do think that the markets could have maybe one more potential push, but then I would be a little bit cautionary, right? So that being said, speaking of cautionary, what is the tail? What is the tail? Well, I'm not going to play this video, but Rick Messett over here, he's very upset in this video. He looks like he's kind of got some tears in his eyes a little bit, and he lost 25 Bitcoin. So I'm not going to play this video. You can go watch it if you want. Rick Messett, this is the guy. Basically, he did not have his crypto in a cold storage wallet. He had his crypto in a hot wallet, right? Hot wallets are things like Exodus. You leave them on your, and they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them if you're trading or you're moving funds a lot. But if you're looking to hold for long term, you need to get a cold storage wallet. I mean, he had 25 Bitcoin. That's worth almost $1 million, I believe, 900,000 something by today's standard. And yeah, really, really terrible. So, again, guys, if you're not actively trading, I cannot stress it enough. Get your crypto into cold storage, learn how to do that. It's not as scary as you think. You just have to take a little bit of responsibility. And ultimately, what I could suggest to you is, get yourself a cold storage. I mean, I know that Ledger has been under fire recently about whatever, but I mean, still to this day, Ledger's technically never actually been hacked. But, I get it. It's a little scary if they get subpoenaed. But if you want to buy an Engrave, they are a little bit more expensive, obviously. But they are completely air-gapped and 100% secure, and they don't even connect to the internet. So at no point is your device ever connected to the internet. It's all done using QR codes. So if you are interested in that, guys, I do still have 10% off. Unfortunately, we don't have 11% off anymore. I guess that deal's over. But if you want, you can still use the code CryptoZombie or just check out the links below if you want to buy that. Totally up to you guys. Go with whatever you want. Do your research. If Engrave's not for you, buy something else. But, again, here is, well, here you go. Here, Bitcoin is moving down since I made this video. So, yeah, we are. And what's interesting, too, just to point this out, is that the S&P is actually up today. So, as much as this may not seem good that we're having Bitcoin fall while the S&P is moving to the upside, at the same time, I think it is showing that we are having a bit of a decoupling and we are having a lack of correlation. So, I'm not getting scared over this move. I'm not upset. Could we go lower? Yes, we could go all the way back down to 30,000. I don't see a problem with that at all. I think it would be healthy price action for Bitcoin. And yeah, so, we'll have to see if this parabola holds. But, basically I just wanted to let you guys know that, short term, do we have a little bit of a Bitcoin warning? Yes. Long term, definitely looking Bitcoin absolutely bullish. And yeah, I mean, obviously you guys know I'm very, very bullish on Bitcoin moving forward. But, come on, guys, we went up for 4 straight weeks. We went up for 4 straight weeks. You don't think there's going to be a correction at some point? So be safe out there. I love you guys. If you do want to learn how to trade, make sure that you check out these tutorials popping up right here, right now. And I also do have some surprises in store for you guys. So get subscribed. I love you. You're awesome. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.